G'day, what's up? I don't want to make this video, but I'm gonna make this video because I want to reward the feeling afterwards, like I did what I didn't want to do, but I need to do because I know I want to do it deep down. Deeper than the level of, oh, I don't know what to talk about, I can't be bothered, I don't feel like it. Whoa. Earthquake. There was an earthquake last night in Tainan, where I am currently. 4 or something on the Richter scale. Woke up in the middle of the night. Not the middle of the night, in this morning, maybe 3 AM, 4 AM. Shit. Is everything about to come crashing down? Go downstairs, open the door, blah blah blah. Everything's fine, don't worry about me, I'm okay. How to be a terrorist. Radicalization. Extremism. I'm gonna lay it down. In a day and age where activities like growing plants on grass that doesn't belong to you is a crime, and when saying that something is... Look at that, you can see when I do this, I'm clutching at straws. I'm going to try and put something together that isn't even slightly congealed yet in my mind jelly. Terrorism. In a very harshly policed world, growing food on the nature strip out the front of your house is a terrorist act. Terrorizing the document legal system which seeks to bind and restrict the flow, movement and actions of flesh and blood, earth-based land creatures. We are of the earth. We are not of the systems that we've created to regulate our behaviours and attitudes. The demonization of radicalization, the demonization of the radical, is very dangerous, because radical behaviours are what bring about positive change. For example, if a duo of people, a pair of partners are together, and one of them is abusive and one of them is a receiver of abuse, it is a standard behaviour of the receiver to continue receiving abuse, to put up with and to allow the abuse to continue, the oppression to continue, the subjugation to continue. A radical behaviour, somebody may radicalise this abusee, by feeding them with information that they particularly need to hear, or sparks enough rage within them to want to act in a radical way, like disappearing, leaving this person, or retaliating, or murdering them so that they never get abused again, defending themselves, or etc, etc, etc. You probably get my point, and if you don't, you do. Don't say that you don't, because I know you do understand. So, similarly, in this day and age, in this world, in the Australian nation, I every day grow more and more irritated to refer to the place where I was born as Australia. Having learned about its true history and discovered its true history, it just doesn't make any sense. It tastes like terror on my tongue. Not terror, T-E-R-R-A, as in land, but terror, T-E-R-R-O-R. Just horrid, has a horrid feeling in myself when I say Australia. Most of the time. There are still times where I am in the previously ignorant sort of mindset characterization, and I just, oh, I'm from Australia, mate. Yeah, it's where I was born, right? Where are you from? Australia. But we're people of the land, every one of us, in every place that has a name. We are from the earth. We are earth creatures. Flesh and blood. Not made of paper, not made of conceptualization. We are made of physical, but at the same time we of course occupy more space than just the physical reality. If you're into that kind of thinking, let me know in the comments below with what your take on our existence is, because I'd love to get down with that stuff. Terrorism, the way the media portray that's terrorism, is the act of inciting fear and causing mass hysteria by acts of terror. And they call these acts of terror, they call acts of terror on things that are not acts of terror. An act of terror is inciting fear, right? Causing hysteria. Murdering somebody is murdering somebody. Murdering many people is murdering many people. Bombing a place is bombing a place. I don't endorse any of these behaviours. I don't believe in violence. I don't think violence is an appropriate tool ever, except perhaps when... No, not really, never. A certain amount of sternness is appropriate sometimes, but I don't believe in violence. Come back. So, terrorism is inciting fear, instilling fear in people. Say, for example, I tell you that I just murdered somebody out of shot here. There's a dead body over there, I just sliced someone's head off. And then I continue to spread that information over the next day. I send a story that I wrote about this to every news agency in the country or on the globe. Say I can send it to every news agency that exists, right? And I also send details of my travel movements, which are conspicuously going to be at your house. Like, I'm coming to your neighborhood. To every person in this country or on this planet. So I'm basically insinuating that you could be at risk of my vicious behavior, earthquake, vicious attitudes and beliefs and murderous practices. Well, your first thoughts, if this was a well-polished and well, like, stitched to seams just like spiffy spam, like Hollywood production quality. Say you had like a budget that was innumerable, like a zero budget. What do they call that? Zero budget, where the price, your restriction on price is nothing. So you can spend as much money as you want to make it as real as you can. Then your first reaction would be like, fuck, that dude's nuts. He just filmed a video saying that he just murdered someone out of frame and then made a video telling everyone about it and telling everyone to be fucking scared. That's terrorism. When you are spreading fear and inciting fear and bringing about a sensation of fear in people, that's terror. That's my understanding of what terrorism is. Basically what is perpetrated by the mass media in the news every day. When you watch, earthquakes are bad, people dying, earthquakes are not bad. Who the fuck said? Okay, see, I have even still such a strong level of influence in my interpretation of the world that everything has to be good and bad. Earthquakes are bad. The earth moving is not a bad thing. It's just like shrugging off the things that we've caked onto it. If we were still like pure land creatures, we would know that an earthquake is going to come soon because we'd have observed movements in the blah blah blah, etc. And we wouldn't be stuck in a big shaky room waiting for it to fall down on us. We'd have nothing to fear falling on our heads because we live under the stars, perhaps, etc. blah blah blah. But the news will play a story 1,000 times and tell you about how many people died because dying is bad, and these people were already poverty-stricken and now they've got death on their hands and buildings on their heads. And it is empathizable with these stories. There is plight to be empathized with. Like, it is harrowing to contemplate the like unavoidable turmoil of others. People have experienced turmoil and pain, and that's a difficult thing to process and exist with in our world, because we are empathetic creatures, humans. We see a brother getting attacked, we help the brother, right? Sister, brother, mister, mother. We wanting to help. We can feel how they are feeling. We want to bring it back to a place of love and safety and health and sustainability for our genes to survive and continue living prosperously. Having news broadcasting fear all the time creates a state of being that cuts us off from that empathetic reality, because we are practicing so many times seeing other humans in pain and then doing nothing about it. Seeing other humans in pain, doing nothing about it. Seeing other humans in pain, oh, so terrible. And then talking about it to other people. Did you see those other humans in pain? Because that's all we can do to process this emotion. We can't act on our desire to help these people because they're through a screen, right? That's terrorism. That's true terrorism. Inciting fear and removing the sensibility of humans being sufficient, capable brethren and fraternity, sorority, family, kinship, helping, safe, wholeness. There is one population of humans on this thing that we call Earth, and we are all the same at a level, right? So we all capability, keeping push up, safety, healthness, right? But terrorism cuts us, divides us, okay? Now the importance of radicalization is to do something that feels wrong a little bit because we've been taught that that's not okay. For example, growing fruit trees near roads, planting food on land that doesn't belong to you, right? Land doesn't belong to anyone. We belong to it. It is our owner. It is our keeper. We are its product. We are its product. We are its plodders. We plod on the land. Land is fundamental to us. We are not, you cannot. It's lunacy. It's illusory, and there's another word that almost came out then that was perfectly in line with that. Lunacy, illusory, and something to do with like theft, and the vibe of theft and conmanship, grafting. You can take trees and attach them to other trees. It's very popular here in Taiwan. There's a belief here, I've heard from one person at least, that if you don't make fruit grow, fruit doesn't grow. Like, fruit doesn't grow on trees. Like, fruit doesn't just grow on trees. Like, who's going to pay the farmers? Like, they have to work so hard to grow fruit. And I have this understanding, whether or not it's totally true or not is another matter, that fruit and food existed before we started growing it. Like, chicken or the egg kind of thing. Food was here before we started making it be here. Like, before Monsanto started growing enormous monocrops, crops existed. Or those things existed in their own natural abundance. Yada, yada, yada. You get the point. So radical action, planting seeds, planting fruit, planting vegetables, rejecting the opportunity to maintain status quo, rejecting the opportunity to reinforce stale systems and reimburse huge errors. Terrorism, voting, is self-terrorism, because we induce fear in ourselves that if we don't act, we're going to miss out on our chance to fix the situation. And we hold up one person to be the mouthpiece, which is fair enough. I don't understand all the intricacies and the efficacy and blah, 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 blah. And I feel like I've got options here. My options throughout my life have been get into it and become proficient and grow through the systems, etc., yada, yada. Or, as this feeling, splinter from whatever is supposedly real and see what other kind of beautiful, real things could exist and see what you can do to pull them into the greater good arena. So I'm going with that, the radical action idea. I'm ideas birther. I like to try and birth ideas, catalyze things, spark things in other people as other people have sparked things in me. I can only do what others have done to me, done for me, done with me. We are all a part of an enormous, enormous, enormous network of beings that are being tweaked daily. Now, if you're not becoming aware of this, opening your eyes, opening your heart, and deciding consciously what it is you'd like to reinforce in this world, then you are the conduit for someone else's efforts. And you're probably the conduit for someone else's efforts regardless, but you can become more in tune with whether or not you are supporting or not supporting certain endeavors. if you watch this video and it resonates with you, I'd heavily appreciate it if you would leave your interpretation or leave your understanding of what I've said. Leave your take on this viewing experience. For me, feedback is important in my development and progression and motivation. And even if I don't receive any feedback for a long time, I will continue to do my best to create. Thank you, and as always,